So through the course of this year, almost 200 podcasts later, I've been fortunate to hear plenty of compliments, and my favorite of them has been, this one person who said, the thing that you really do well is that you tend to shut the hell up, and really, I mean, I think it's that simple on some level. Because I don't really kid myself at all about how much or how little I know about certain things, and every podcast, just like you, the listener, I am on a quest to understand more about whatever the topic is, be it startups or politics or policy, and listen to people who have real skin in the game. So, for instance, when you hear about voting patterns in a particular constituency from someone like Rohit Jaraman, it's likely that he has been to the place or knows a few people, if not a lot of people there, and has seen things firsthand, right? When you hear about economics from, let's say, Harsh talking about how he's long on India, that his own money, he's got his own money invested in whatever he's saying, right? So these are people with real skin in the game. And this is prevalent across our guest list, right? So you could take any different domain like power or finance or whatever. You have people who have spent years executing in that domain, talking about things that are relevant to that domain, right? And at some level, that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring you diverse perspectives from people with real skin in the game. And as Ashish mentioned, as Vatsa also alluded to earlier, it's really heartening to note the kind of response that we've received. Believe me, in February, March, or even I would say even 2 or 3 months back, I would not have really guessed that we would come as far in our first year, right? I'm saying this on podcast number 99. Now, one of the questions that I've been trying to answer is, why doesn't the mainstream media do this? Arguably, they have infinitely more resources at their disposal and can do any of the things that we're doing at a tremendous scale. But why do they not do it? Why do they find the need to put words in people's mouths? Why do they value credentials over content? Why do they want you to feel a certain way about certain things? And journalists will tell you that the media assumes the responsibility of having to inform people. They need to inform people so people can make informed decisions about everything. But I think, in my estimation, they've moved way past that point. The media today is about mind control, no two ways about it. And in this sort of an attention economy that we're living in, it's worth hundreds of billions of dollars. That's what's at stake. And sadly, it is coming at the cost of your sanity, your values. It's coming at the cost of all of these things that are happening to our society, right? And you might wonder, what is the way out of this? Is there really a way out of this? Because you might think that this is a desperate situation, right? But I am super optimistic about this. I'm really, really optimistic about this. I'm generally an optimistic person, but especially with respect to something like this, I'm super optimistic because I think technology has revolutionized mainstream media. And what we have today is this emerging alternative media, of which Bharatvaarta is humbly and proudly a small part of it as well, right? And you might know the others as well, right? Let's look at three aspects when we talk about media. I look at content, distribution, and monetization, right? So content, distribution, and monetization, and I'm going to talk briefly about how these things have changed over the course of the last 5 or 10 years. And again, these are things we could take whole podcasts to explain, but in the interest of time, I'll just touch upon a few key points in these, right? So if you look at content, for instance, the mainstream media assumption, the presupposition was that people liked bite-sized content, right? So you have typical programming extending from anywhere to 30 minutes or 25, 30 minutes, and then you have about 5 or 10 minutes of ads, depending on what channel, what type of content, and so on. everything is cut to cut, and so on, right? But is that really the case? Do people not really appreciate long form? When we started out in February, our first podcast was about 25 minutes long, then 30, then 40. And then today, I mean, we're hard pressed to end a podcast at less than an hour, right? So you might think that, well, I mean, it doesn't really scale. But then if you look at the person with the maximum reach today, someone like Joe Rogan, well, his podcasts are 2.5, 3 hours long, right? My sort of contention in this is that we have moved past this passive consumption of news and entertainment into something called infotainment, right? People want information that's also useful to them and entertaining to them. And if that content is 2 hours long, so be it. If that content is 20 seconds long, so be it, right? You're also seeing this in the various types of content being generated. You have audio content, for example, and for the life of me, I did not understand, the value of audio content. But having consumed, 100 plus podcasts as a listener this year, I'm a big fan of audio content, right? So on the content side, I think there have been all of these changes in terms of the format itself and in terms of the type of content, right? Let's move on to distribution. Now, the conventional media was a broadcast, essentially, right? So, I mean, you had the TV channel or some sort of a radio, whatever, very one-way communication, very, very centralized, extremely high cost of production. You needed, high-end equipment, so on and so forth, right? But if you cut to today, what you're seeing is a total decentralization of this. So you're seeing different platforms that are facilitating anyone, right? So arguably with an internet connection and maybe an application like Zoom, you can broadcast to millions, if not billions, of people across the world, right? The cost of production has gone down, way down, in fact, right? And today, any kind of communication is two-way communication. Now, I'm saying all of these things, and you guys are responding on the comments in YouTube. You'll respond on social media, etc. Right? Are platforms ideal? Well, I think we're in the stage 1 or stage 2 of the platform evolution itself. And I mean, there are groups that are still negotiating for power in this sort of stage that we're in. But the fact that there will be greater decentralization, there is no question about it, right? So this is a trend that is that's not going to reverse, right? So that was about distribution. And finally, something that is really, really important is monetization, right? The number of middlemen or the amount of institutional cost and requirement has gone down to near zero at this point of time, right? So you're seeing this with what's happening with all of these journalists leaving institutions like New York Times, for example, and starting up Substacks, right? It's viable enough for them to start their own subscription service on a platform like Substack, right? And this is having, this is changing across products, right? I mean, I'm not only talking about media. I mean, even if you look at software, for example, it's pay-per use, paper consumption, subscription-based economy that we're living in, right? And what this means is that there is more power to the people to kind of vote with their feet, right? And vote for the type of things that they want to see and want to hear, right? And coming to the end of what I wanted to say, this is really why I'm super optimistic about the change, right? Because people are paying for content. In fact, they understand that it means more than news and entertainment. It means standing up for something. It means voting for a cause and so on, right? So while we haven't monetized yet, nearly every week we have people asking us about, hey, I mean, do you have a Patreon account? Or when are you starting a subscription service? People even ask us if we have merchandise and so on, right? While we don't have any plans as of now, but we will shortly start these services and subscriptions and keep you informed about it. But that is again something really heartening to note, right? So with that, I will stop with my section on the evolution of media itself. And as I said, there are many different facets to this. I think we should do a podcast on this. So, all right. I think next up, We have Amit, who's going to talk about.
Harry, we have a question for
one
you.
question for you.
Oh, okay, sure.
Abhishek wants to know if the CEOs will stop going to CNBC, or at least add podcasts as a second part of their media appearances, if not stop going to CNBC.
Yeah, I think we've seen this, right? I mean, any of the people who have come, I mean, I would say 2 out of 3 people who have come on, or, in fact, 100% of them could be on any channel, any mainstream news channel, but they have chosen to come on Bharatvaarta, right? So I think that that change has already happened. I mean, you mentioned a few of the eminent personalities, right? Smriti Irani, Balaji Srinivasan, Sridhar Vembu. Now, any channel on the face of the earth would give their right arms to have them on prime time, but they've chosen to come on Bharatvaarta and other podcasts as well. So I think this is a change that's already underway. Yeah.
We've had two tech CEOs, and Sridhar Vembu of Zoho and Gautam Thakkar of Star Sports India when he was a CEO. We've also had Rajat Area of Acme Solar, who appeared on the podcast like a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, I think it's happening with us also. I think that's a good sign.
Absolutely.